couple requests for the YouTube channel, and one of them is show you guys how I do solid suspension. Now, solid suspension can be done many different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I guess that's not true. There's a wrong way to do it, and how it's determined if it's wrong is if it's in the promoter's eyes and they say it's wrong. So, here in Ontario, we're not allowed to reinforce any parts. Strut, A-arms, lower A-arms. Basically, when we make solid suspension, it's got to be all factory parts. Which is kind of nice because it's not a whole lot of modifying. On full-size cars, all you basically do is weld the upper A-arm down. But what a lot of people want to know is how to make solid suspension on these front-wheel drive products with struts. It's very simple. Honestly, you can do this in probably, I'm going to say 20 minutes, and you don't even need to take the strut out of the car. There's plenty of ways to do it. I've done in the past where you take the strut out, take the spring right out, cut a large piece of steel, put inside the strut, weld it. But you know what? I've done that, and I've got to the derby, and the promoter says that's called reinforcing, because now you've added a large piece of steel inside the strut, and it can't bend. The first thing to do with solid suspension is to contact your promoter, or you know what, if you've run the derby before and you know the rules, then go for it. But around here, there's basically only one promoter at his pro mini shows that will let you run solid suspension. None of the local fair boards will let you run solid suspension. Thrill Show will not let you run solid suspension. I can only really think Impact is pretty much the only derby around that will actually let you run solid suspension. Yes, you might get away with running solid suspension at some of the shows, but to be within the rules, make sure you guys contact them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jack up this car and we're going to pull this tire off. Super simple, but that's basically the first step. This is a scrap car and I really don't care too much about it, so nah. So this is what our strut looks like. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here with an X-Acto knife and we're going to cut this stupid rock dirt guard out of the way. And once that's out of the way, then we can start the next step. So let's get that gone. So now that the dust guard is off, what we're going to do, and we've already kind of done it, is we went and got this washer. Now as you can tell from the zip cut, we've cut it in half. So now all you do is you take this washer, and you put it in there like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't even have to be the right size. And then what you do is you just take this, put it so it faces you, and then run your welder along the outside edge of that, and that will make that solid suspension. You're like, yes, there's other things you can do. In the past, like I said, I've removed the spring completely and replaced it with a large piece of pipe, but I actually was not allowed to run that car because they consider that reinforcing. A lot of the other guys that do it on the cheap side, what they'll do, in the cheap and easy side, which is always the nice side of life, what they'll do is they'll take a welder and just run a bead of weld around this a couple times and just get a big lump on the shaft. And that does work as well, but what I find is if you take a really big hit or somebody drives on top of you and you overload it, the weld can rip through the seal and go on the inside and then stop the car from coming back up. So basically in turn what it's doing is basically lowering your car now. So I'm not a big fan of that. These washers, if you overload the suspension, there's no way that washer will go down inside of there. Yes, you know what, if you do a crappy weld, they could break off and all that, but I don't find they do that. I've never really had an issue with these. The only thing I do find with solid suspension, because you are taking the strut shaft out of the strut body, it has more of a tendency to bend and get bent easily. So when you do this, make sure you actually do put steel behind the strut. I find that helps keep these struts alive and straight a lot longer. Now again, for us, we're allowed about, I think it's about 4 to 6 inches behind the strut, and right here I'm sitting at about 3 3/4. I try to keep it on the lower side of the rules, that way everybody leaves me alone. But it can't be touching from factory. This thing has been through a derby, so it is almost touching now. So, yeah, so that's how I do my solid suspension. And honestly, if I'm allowed to run the solid suspension, I don't really get yelled at any demolition derbies for doing it this way. There is other ways, like I said. You can weld something on the actual frame down here to the lower A-arm and keep that from being bent down there. But, and again, in my rules, they consider that reinforcing. As you can see on this car, it's got the tie rods done and the one plate on the K-frame where they always bend, but there's plenty of ways that you can do this. And you know what? No way is wrong. Every way that you guys trying to do something is fine. However you guys want to do this is up to you. This is the way I do it. Is this the only way to do it? No. No, it is not. There's plenty of ways to make solid suspension on your own car. I've seen guys build their own struts, right? From the base to the top. Again, that would not be allowed where I run my cars, but where they run their cars, obviously it's allowed. So you know what? Know your rules. Know what you're allowed to do. So basically this all comes down to basically how you want to do it and what your rules allow. For me, this is what I like to do. I enjoy doing this. I find it's very little effort for maximum payoff, and I find it does not violate the rules around here. Is it the only way? No. If you guys got any other ways to make solid suspension that you think would be allowed in my rules, please leave a comment below, because I'm always willing to learn new ways. Like I said, the day you stop listening is the day you stop learning. So, you know what? I'm willing to listen to any input from you guys. I cannot add a piece of pipe inside the strut to reinforce it. I cannot build my own struts, and I cannot weld lower control arms down. So that kind of limits to what I can do. So thanks for watching Zach's workshop. Hopefully this video helped you guys, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Don't forget to leave a like, and if you got a different way or you like this way, feel free to leave a comment. See you guys tomorrow.